an iPad, right? And we could be marking that things up. So there's some closure. The gap is getting closed on this.
Yeah, the iPad's it's close, but not really, because iPad's only this big.
True.
And it's like when you write on it, there's that, what do you call it, like a barrier, like at the very least psychological barrier between the actual document, and us. Right. It feels like it. Even though you're marking on, it's a touch screen, so you can, it feels like it.
Here's one this is a real simple, straightforward one. The difference between a physical checklist on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard compared to, there's about 5 million apps, including native apps to your phone that do checklists. I personally think that I find physical lists in a notebook or on a whiteboard better. What do you think?
I think it's funny how you use the expression native apps.
Was that correct?
It's advanced. Yeah.
Was that correct?
That's correct.
That's what they are, right? Like Apple has
it comes with it.
Yeah, it comes with it.
Yeah. That's good, man. It's good.
I've been coming along quite over nicely.
Here. I could dig it.
They should contact me, actually.
Sure, of course. They probably should. Yeah.
They should, and I could dial that app in where it would be squared away.
Very tactile. Right. That's what's called, right, when you can touch it.
But also, one of the problems is, one of the disadvantages of those kind of lists is because things are hidden, right? Like you have to open that list, right? You can't see it. So you look at a project and you don't really even see the depth of the project. Whereas if you have like a physical list that you're looking at, you say, "Oh, that project is gonna take some labor."
Yeah, I feel it for sure. I think I'm kind of used to the apps though, as far as like notes and whatever. I'm used to it. So I think like anything, the more you get used to it, the more you're like, oh, I like this or whatever.
I use the notes one. So easy. Like when in the SEAL teams, PowerPoint just started to just run everything. Yeah. Everything was briefed on PowerPoint. And that is one time when you'd bring the guys around to look at a map or bring the guys around to look at an image that you can draw on, so much clearer than just everyone sitting there. There's the separation. I guess you called it, a virtual separation. There's some separation. Barrier. Yeah. When you'd actually pull out a map and say, here's the route, you'd be like drawing it on there. And you'd say, okay, there's a hill over here. And people, I don't know, people seem to get it better. Yeah. Same thing with something called the force list, which sounds really cool, but all it means is this is who's going on this mission.
Okay.
And also where they're sitting in the vehicles. Yeah. The virtual force list almost always sucked. It was almost always like slightly wrong, and people wouldn't know where but we would do it on a magnet board, and everybody had their own magnet. I still have my magnet from my first deployment. It says my magnet just says Jocko. It's yellow. Well, it's the magnet's brown, and then it says Jocko, and it's off center, and like it looks like somebody did it in like 5 minutes. Not like this big high speed thing, right? Yeah. No, it's this really kind of rudimentary magnet. It says Jocko.
So when you get your magnet, that's your magnet for the whole trip.
I'm making it into a bigger deal than it is.
Honestly, it's pretty dope.
But on that first deployment to Iraq, that was my magnet. When I left, I took the magnet with me.
Yeah.
Because there's some good memories with the magnet, right? Sure. You see that thing because you have on the dry erase board, the magnetic dry erase board, you have outlines of the vehicles. And then you just put your magnet gets put into position. You look at the board, you know where you're at, right?
Yeah.
And most of the time, I was in vehicle 2, in the vehicle commander seat. That's where I was most of the time, depending on what we were doing. Sometimes I would be, if I was like the assault force commander, I might be in vehicle 3, but whatever. But that little magnet, you know where it is right now?
On your refrigerator.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So when I go to the refrigerator, I remember that magnet. And one of my buddies named Johnny, like one day he sent me a picture of his magnet.
Sure.
And I sent him a picture of mine back.
Yeah. Wait, so it's a it's just a circle.
No, it's
magnet.
Not a circle. It's a square. It's a rectangle.
But but is it like just a raw magnet though, or
just
is
a
it
raw
like
magnet? A raw magnet with what's it called? You ever seen those little machines where you make a label? Label making machine. Yeah. Label maker.
Little label.
So there's a little yellow label, and the magnet just says Jocko.
Huh.
Boom, there it is. And it's off center. That's what makes me, that's what's kind of funny.
Special.
It's not like this special thing. I was like, hey, here. Boom, done.
Yeah, but it's like one of the, for lack of better terms, or for lack of better term, one of the trinkets of the missions, you know? It's like one of the memorabilia or whatever.
It might be, I don't know, I'd have to think of it. I'm sure there's other trinkets, but that is the one thing that I go, oh yeah, those are some good times right there.
Yeah, every once in a while you get those kind, right? Something that's of use, not major, massive use, but it's like an essential part of the whole.
When we made Task Unit Bruiser, the first thing I was, okay guys, we need magnet boards. And you know, everyone's like thinking, whatever. We'll just use the computer and all that stuff. And it's so much harder. Imagine this, you got 40 people, 40 little names, and you're dragging them around on PowerPoint. And so what, you deleted one by accident. Where'd that one go? It's from a different, the magnets, like you have a space on the magnet board. Oh, these guys aren't going on the mission. They're over here. But you can see them. And then you say, wait, we need another machine gunner. Oh, cool. Who's the machine gunner? Smith's machine gunner. Put him in the turret. Boom, we're good.
Yeah.
The physical representation is important.
Yep. Yeah, I know what it is.
Okay.
So you know what Photoshop is, right?
I do know what it is. Okay. It's not a native app, though.
No, sir, it is not. So that's an aftermarket one for sure. So so Photoshop is like, really, when you get used to it, it's like, oh, it's simple, you know. But here's the difference, and I just distilled it down. It's the interface. The interface. That's what makes it like, that's the barrier. Even if it's a simple interface like PowerPoint, you know, there's still an interface. You got to learn how to use PowerPoint, right? Yeah. So even after you learn how to use PowerPoint, you still have to interface with the system. You do. You know? Yep. So, but with a physical thing, there is no interface. There's just boom, boom, we're doing it. You look, if I want this little Jocko magnet to physically move to the front seat, watch me physically move them to the front seat.
There's no interface that happens.
Exactly.
It's just reality.
Yeah. So the feedback is instant.
Yeah. It was kind of a big deal. I remember, I'll have to reconfirm this with Leif, but there was, I wouldn't say resistance, but questions, you know, because I think I went out and just bought magnets for Task Unit Bruiser. Like, okay, here's the magnet, here's the magnet. The magnet boards were expensive too. I want to say a big magnet board costs over $100. Yeah. You know, which is a lot of money when you're in the Navy and you got 3 kids. Like $100 is no joke.
Oh yeah, for just a board.
Yeah. But well worth every penny. Yeah, every penny.
So because you like to read physical books too.
I do,
right? And I'm not saying necessarily compared to Audible, but like I use the Kindle, right? There's a little interface going on right there too. But technically, it's quicker. There's less physical work to use a Kindle than a book.
Yeah, I think what would have to happen for me is I would have to use a Kindle or whatever digital reader thing until I learn the interface. Because right now, I can't stand those things.
Yeah, well, I do on the phone, the Kindle app or whatever. But it's the same thing. Kindle, actually, I think the actual Kindle is bigger, so it's better.
You know what's interesting? What my kids do for books for school and whatnot, they read the book as they listen to the audiobook. Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You know what? I did that one time. You know what book I did it for? Fields of Fire by James Webb. Yeah. I was listening to it and reading it. Yeah. And I don't know why. I don't know why I decided to do that. Maybe because it was a fiction book? I don't know. But for some reason, that's what I did.
Well, there's all kinds of like different reading methods. You know, there's all these methods like to read, whether it be faster, improve comprehension, you know, all this way. And one of them is to skim, like rudimentary skim, the kind like literally like 3 seconds per page, maybe even 1 second per page.
Okay. What does that do?
Skim the whole thing first. And it creates this idea of what everything's about.
So you skim it first, and then you're going to go back
and
read
it. And you read it kind of.
I was going to really throw that idea out the window.
Skim it and then walk out the door?
Actually, so when I get a potential book for the podcast, I will say I do some of that. Yeah. I'll be looking through it because, you know, the book for the podcast is going to have to be a good book. Right. And I got to make sure that it fits in with the podcast.
Right.
So I'll skim it and look for scenes. Yeah, that I go, oh, that's a good one. And then you know what I do is I read the end. as jacked up as that is, spoiler alert. I
all
spoiler
day,
the book for myself. Even though most of the time you kind of know what's going to happen. I mean, it's a war book. It's like, oh, it's World War II. Cool. We know what's going to happen, right? If the first person that's writing it, they live to write the book, so you know they're alive.
Right. Yeah.
Most of the time. There's been a few where the person, this is recovered from them or whatever. But, yeah, so I skim through them and then I find the information. But I haven't been able to prep for a podcast virtually yet. All of them have been, even there was one where I was traveling and I decided I was going to do something that I had it on PDF and I went through the whole thing and like I outlined it and stuff while virtually. And then when I got home, I printed it out and brought it in. Yeah.
Yeah. There must be something with the relationship between, the material, the physical material in your eyeballs or something.
So let's just say this from a leadership perspective. Here's the takeaway. If the virtual methodology is not working, perhaps try a physical version. That's going to be my suggestion after all this assessment of General Patton's words. Check. All right. Now we get to plans. And what's cool about this, his plans, his section, so like the last section's a couple paragraphs long, the section before that couple paragraphs long. The section about planning, arguably the most important section to be given by the commander of how we're going to plan. This is one of the shortest sections here. Plans. Plans must be simple and flexible. I got that. I utilized that right there so much. It was ridiculous. And it was so powerful to be able to say, hey, look, because in the SEAL teams, they would lean towards wanting, and not just in SEAL teams, people do this in business all the time. They want to make plans ultra detailed because they think the more detail they put in the plan, the better the plan will be executed. Yeah. That's actually wrong. The more detail you put in the plan, look, you need to have some level of detail, but if you go overboard with the detail, now you're working on things that don't matter. You're trying to do things in a way that don't matter. You can't do that. So that's how he starts out. Plans must be simple and flexible because nothing's going to go the way you expect it to go. And then he says this, actually, they only form a datum plane from which you build as necessity directs or opportunity offers. So the plan is barely anything. It's like, hey, this is the general idea, and then we'll make adjustments as necessity directs or as we have opportunities. They should be made by the people who are going to execute them. Right? Incredible. Once again, these are things that I did, and I when I read that, I go, man, I'm so lucky that I did that. Mm-hmm. Because to force a plan down someone's throat, or to even worse, take the problem and multiply it exponentially, force the plan down on the people below you that is very detailed and doesn't have any flexibility. That's just failure. Mm-hmm. I'd get to see that, man. I'd get to see some task unit commander coming through training and look, the guy's not a bad human. Guy actually wants to do good. In fact, wanting to do a good job can drive you to try and make a more detailed plan and force it down onto your people. That's not necessarily a person that's a bad leader. They just haven't learned the lesson yet. That might be a person that's super engaged, wants to do a great job, overachiever. Hey, look, I know how to do this. Puts together this highly detailed plan. That's not a good call, man. Yeah. It's nothing against the person. What you have to do with that person is show them the light, right? You got to bring them to the light. Okay. So then he goes through a section on reconnaissance. You can never have too much reconnaissance. Use every means available before, during, and after battle. Reports must be facts, not opinions. Negative as well as positive. Do not believe intercepts blindly. Cross-check. Sometimes messages are sent out to be intercepted. So a bunch of good little things to think about there. Reports must be facts, not opinions. There's a term that you use in the military. It appears to be, ATB. Mm-hmm. So you'd see a person holding something. You're pretty sure it's a weapon, but you don't know. Right. Then you say appears to be a weapon. Mm-hmm. It appears to be a weapon. Or you say, people moving into in a appears to be a tactical position, right? So it's just one of those little things because there's a huge difference between me saying they were moving weapons into the building or they were moving what appeared to be weapons into the building.
Right. Yeah, it's like it's not an established fact.
Not an established fact. And if you remember when we talked about the My Lai massacre, that's one of those things where the difference between appears to be